Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store, affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and today is the 13th of November, 2017. We are just days away, my friends, days away from the release of Justice League, whose early reactions are coming in and saying, oh yeah, it's passable, which I think to many people is just all they really needed to hear. It's passable? I'm down. I'm game. I'm all for it. But it's not all fun times and rainbows in the DCEU land, at least not when it comes to Batman, which is why I want to have this be the thumbnail and be the first story I talk about today, because I'm getting sick and tired of Ben Affleck talking about Batman, mostly because it's always a will they, won't they. It's happening more times than with Sam and Diane on Cheers, and it's just getting to be super damn frustrating. So according to a new interview, Affleck is contemplating his solo Batman role. And keep in mind, just a few months ago at Comic-Con, he had said that he was in it. He was in it to win it. He was balls deep in Batman. This is what he was going to do. And that was that. And then here it is a few days before the release of it. And he's saying, well, I'm contemplating it. Now, granted, I think a lot of the headlines here are spurring anger and negativity, maybe where it doesn't need it. Looking at the exact quote, we can basically kind of ascertain what he's trying to say. But at the same time, Ben, stop saying it. Stop saying it. Not before the release of the new movie, because it's going to deride confidence in this thing. So here's what he says in the interview with USA Today. The Batman, something I'm contemplating, saying, you don't do it forever, so I want to find a graceful and cool way to segue out of it. Now, a lot of people have jumped on this as saying, okay, this is him contemplating his exit. We know he's wanted out for a while, yada, 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 yada. And it's probably correct to an extent, but I think also it's saying, you know, the dude's in his mid-40s. You're not going to be Batman forever, right, in terms of physically speaking. So he's probably going to try to find a cool way to segue out and carry give the franchise over to somebody else, so on and so forth. But we're getting ready to see his second portrayal as the character. So what the hell is he talking about, right? Like, I mean, when is the Batman movie even going to remotely start filming? I mean, we know Aquaman finished. We know that's going to be coming out next year. 2019 is what we're hearing for this particular solo Batman movie. We also know that there's been a bit of a mix-up, or shake-up, I should say, in terms of Wonder Woman's release, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. So I think Warner's is possibly contemplating for there not being a solo Batman film, and maybe trying to segue into creating someone else, or bringing someone else into the role. And it's annoying. It's annoying when these actors sign up for these multi-film deals, and then go, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You know, I mean, look, Daniel Craig has done 4 Bond films. He's at a point now where if he's kind of contemplating coming back, he's done at least 4. Affleck's been in 2. And one of them, he shared a title with Superman. And this one is an ensemble film. So he hasn't even been in a full solo Batman movie yet. I mean, all things considered, when it comes to the DCEU, Will Smith's Deadshot has got more screen time. So that is kind of where things are at right now. And it's just really, really annoying. And I want Affleck to stop talking about it, to be honest with you. Either stay or go, dude. Stop this back and forth. Well, I mean, I'm just looking for, you know, like a cool way to segue out of it. Yeah, maybe in 10 years, when you've done, you know, the second Justice League, when you've done at least 2 solo Batman films or whatever. Okay, like, just that's the thing. You're Batman. You signed a deal. Okay, just do that. But don't do this will they, won't they nonsense. We hate it on television, and we hate it when it comes to these movies. You don't literally hear anyone at Marvel talking about this, right? No one on Marvel's payroll is making these comments. I mean, Chris Evans a little bit with Captain America, right? He extended his contract in order to finish out the Captain's role with Avengers 4. Fine. But that's still Avengers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 Captain America movies. That's not just 2. But other than that, you don't hear anyone on Marvel talking about their graceful exit. They're playing these characters because they want to play them, and they're being handsomely compensated. Yes, Batman is a mantle that will go between actor and actor, but we're on this new one now, and he's not even 2 films in and looking for a way out, or at least talking about a way out. And that just might have a lot to do with Affleck's own personal life. That's been a mess for a while, and, you know, clearly that could have some impact. But the thing is, people like him in the role. and what he should do in this moment when he's trying to deal with his personal life issues, divorce and addiction issues. Throw himself into this character, a character that shuns personal responsibility, or shuns personal relationships, not personal responsibility, but personal relationships, and his own addiction for becoming a vigilante, and use it as a method to become the Batman, to be the Batman. And that's what fans would very much reward you for. But this, I'm just looking for kind of maybe a graceful way to leave, is just going to piss everyone off and not gain you any fans in the long run. So Affleck, stop it. Just stop it. All right, jumping over into, again, news that what's going on, what's happening here. I don't get it. Apparently, Spider-Man is getting us another spinoff. We know Venom's in production right now. We know Silver Sable and Black Cat are apparently in pre-production, or at least in the early stages of pre-production. And now we're finding out that Morbius, the Living Vampire, is being developed by Sony. Now, my first reaction to this, believe it or not, is cool. I would love to see Morbius on screen. I loved Morbius's characters in Spider-Man the Animated Series, especially when he teamed up with Blade. It was just cool. And Marvel has the rights to Blade. So what's going on here, right? Well, it says here, just when you thought that Sony Spider-Man Cinematic Universe featuring everyone except for Spider-Man couldn't get any weirder, 2017 hits again. That's a very, very fair assessment to make here. Prepare yourself for some movie news that will make you blearily double take at your computer screen and then wonder if you actually woke up this morning. A new story that a new Sony Spider-Man spinoff is in the works with Power Rangers writing duo Burke Sharpless and Matt Sazama, this time centered around the Marvel antihero Morbius the Living Vampire. Now, looking at what's going on with Sony and what they're trying to do with their Marvel characters, it does make sense. It makes sense as to why they're doing it, not how they're doing it. I just want to make that abundantly clear. It makes sense because we know that they want to capitalize on this. We know that their highest grossing film of 2017 makes a whole bunch of other duds, with the exception of Baby Driver, was Spider-Man Homecoming. We know that this is what's going to help bring them in some money. We know that this is what they're trying to do. But what everyone doesn't like is the fact that that Spider-Man won't be in it, and it won't be tied to the larger MCU. So it's going to feel very weird. It creates continuity problems. It creates trust issues with Sony, especially after they've come this far as building the trust with the fans of the MCU and making Spider-Man Homecoming a profit. And this is where we're at right now. So the Hollywood Reporter says that Sharpless and Sazama have penned the script for the Spider-Man spin-off Morbius, which was submitted to Sony in secret. So he was the first anti-hero introduced as a supernatural Spider-Man villain in The Amazing Spider-Man 101, which eventually went on to become a tragic anti-hero in its own title. And, he's a scientist with a rare blood disease, tries to cure himself, and then basically becomes a vampire. But there's no more details about this film right now. And the thing is, we won't hear more about this for a while. This news is just breaking. Clearly they've penned a script, so it's probably going to be in the early stages of development. They've given it off to Sony, so Tom Rothman probably has his hands on it. Amy Pascal probably has her hands on it, and they're now trying to contemplate the best way to bring this to screen, simply because they know that if they can create a series of films around these anti-heroes that they have the rights to, then they might actually be able to to find that success. Like I said before, this is like Sony's MCU, or the SMCU, is kind of what I'm effectively calling it, is going to run parallel to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, meaning there will be those vague references that connect the two, similar to the Netflix series, where they talk about the big green guy, they talk about the incident, they talk about all of those things without directly connecting it. So it's going to run parallel. So while it may not be in the MCU as a whole, it's probably going to be very similar to how Netflix handles it, and maybe even to some extent how Inhumans handled it, and how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, no, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is more directly connected. Inhumans just had some vague references surrounded by an otherwise craptastic show. So I think that's what's going to happen here, and it's a smart play in its own right. But as fans of the cinematic universe and fans who want it to be connected and know that Kevin Feige wants them all to be connected, there has to be some backroom dealings going on. There has to be something that's happening right now in order for this to be taking form. I don't think they would do this without some kind of blessing from Marvel. I don't think they would do this without there being some talks on the back end about either acquiring the Marvel characters back from Sony or acquiring Columbia Pictures itself. And keep in mind, we are hearing the talks that the Fox and Disney deal isn't exactly dead, in order to then compete with Netflix. So that, again, that is kind of where Disney is headed, and it is a bold play, and we'll have to wait and see what happens next. But jumping over into some drama news, and this is actually kind of sad because I'd love to see a sequel to this. Apparently, Mad Max Fury Road is seeing its sequel delayed because of, well, the fact that they're suing Warner Brothers over some money. Now, Mad Max Fury Road came out 2.5 years ago. I mean, we're this May will be 3 years, and eventually, the actors aren't probably going to want to go back to do a sequel after all this time. We need sequels to come out relatively in quick succession. 2 to 3 years generally, I would say, max in most cases for them to be considered successful. I mean, you get your cases like, Mad Max Fury Road being kind of a sequel to Mad Max. I don't know if it ties into Beyond Thunderdome or anything else, but you've also got Jurassic World coming out 23 years after the first movie, and that's a direct sequel to that. So yeah, I mean, it can happen, but at the same time, people want it in quick succession. They want to keep the stories going. And this is only going to further delay that. So it says here that the dispute, according to Justice David Hammerschlag, hinges on an agreement that states that Kennedy Miller Mitchell, which is a production company that did Mad Max Fury Road for Warner Brothers, would receive a $7 million bonus if the final net cost of the movie was less than $157 million. That number was to be determined after certain costs were excluded from calculations. Here's what the justice says. On Warner Brothers calculations, Mad Max went over budget. If these calculations are right, Kennedy Miller Mitchell does not get a bonus. But the production company claims Warner Brothers made a series of decisions which caused substantial changes and delays to Mad Max, which led to additional costs and expenses that the studio wrongly took them into account in its over-budget calculation. If those costs are left out of account, Kennedy Miller Mitchell says that Mad Max came in under budget. And this is one of those cases where you've got Hollywood accounting coming into play. When Hollywood accounting comes into play, it generally tends to not go over well. Everything is over budget, apparently. Empire Strikes Back, $31 million budgeted movie back in back in 1980. Apparently never made a profit. Explain that one to me. Right? According to Hollywood accounting, never made a profit. You can know about this because David Prowse, who played Vader, has complained about that quite a bit, to the point of where Lucas banned him from Star Wars conventions because of all that. So it's like, Hollywood accounting is a real messed up thing. And if the IRS ever took a good long look into how it's done, I'm pretty sure there would be some heads that would roll. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here. And so this is what George Miller and company had to say. Simply put, we are owed a substantial earnings for diligent and painstaking work which spanned over 10 years in development of the script and preparation and 3 years in production of the movie. That hard work resulted in a picture which found wide acclaim globally. We'd much prefer to be making movies with Warner Brothers than litigating with them, but after trying for over a year, we are unable to reach a satisfactory resolution and have now had to resort to a lawsuit to sort things out. So, essentially speaking, there is no sequel to Mad Max Fury Road, even though when they had gotten ready to release Mad Max Fury Road, there were 2 sequels already in development. They wanted there to be a trilogy. I believe it was Mad Max Furiosa was going to be one, and then I forget what the name of the third one was. But they wanted to center a lot of it around Furiosa and Max and have that going forward because Charlize Theron's character was received very well. And I agree. I thought she was great. So what you have here is a situation where these companies are battling each other over $7 million, which is, yes, a lot of money to you and me. To you and me, it's a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things in Hollywood, a multi-billion-dollar a year industry, it's really not. So it almost feels like they're fighting over peanuts here. I mean, don't you think they'd rather be getting the money to make another movie to therefore make more money in the long run? All they're doing is just delaying the sequels from coming out and making fans angry in the process. Now, I'm not defending Warner Brothers if they did, in fact, miscalculate on these particular, budgets and whatnot. And I'm not trying to say, forget about $7 million, like it's nothing. But to me, it feels like this is just one of those things that's only going to delay us ever getting a Mad Max sequel. And honestly, given how old Miller is, he's in his 70s now. I don't really foresee us actually getting it at this point. You know, if they would have had to rush into production, especially if they spend 3 years working on Mad Max Fury Road and 10 years on the script, which is interesting if you think about the actual script and how they did it. 10 years feels like a long time. Something that probably could have been written in a weekend. But that being said, you know, I mean, yeah, they want to be compensated, and I get that. But I don't know, if it was me, I would sit there and I would leverage that compensation on Warner's as, you know, put that into a budget for something else. Give me this next movie, greenlight this next movie, we'll call it Square. And then have the opportunity to continue making art and then continue making a profit. But then again, I know once you give them an inch, they might take a mile. It's a whole huge thing. But I don't know. I'm of the mind of I'd rather be creating than litigating, personally. So let's jump over here to this news that I found to be very, very, very cool. Very, very, very cool. HITMAN TV show being developed for Hulu by John Wick writer. Now, this is both cool and not cool at the same time. And I will specify that right up front. Hitman is like one of my all-time favorite video game franchises. Hitman 2016 was my game of the year last year. I love that damn thing. They just announced more content for it. I'm excited. It's a fantastic title. If you haven't played it, I do fully recommend it. It is well done, and IO Interactive's at the top of their game. And now that they are an independently owned franchise, they can do some more stuff with it, which brings me to this TV show. But John Wick writer is like the thing that bothers me a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I love John Wick 1 and John Wick 2. I was legitimately angry with myself for not having seen John Wick, the first one, in theaters. I only saw it at the beginning of this year before the sequel came out. So I realize I made a mistake as a film fan, but that's also a lot of high action. And Hitman is more about strategy and preparation and sneaking in undetected. So I don't know. But then again, I'm not saying this is going to be bad. I'm just saying, like, I'm hoping they don't turn it into a high action concept that defeats the purpose of the game itself. So it says here that Agent 47 will be taking his lethal skills to the small screen, as a character is due to appear in a Hitman television series for Hulu. The Hitman video game franchise began in 2000 and follows a genetically engineered assassin codenamed 47. The games, which are now solely being developed by IO Interactive since splitting with publisher Square Enix, allow the players the freedom to choose how they will assassinate targets. They can sneak around using disguises and engineering tragic accidents, or go in guns blazing. And that is literally like the best part of the game, is the fact that it is very much a sandbox of which there really is no right way to complete the mission. I mean, granted, you get different like rankings, you know, you can get like silent assassin is one of the mission, you know, one of those things. You can get, you know, assassin, or you know, different classifications for it, depending on how you do. Right. And then again, so it puts an emphasis on being sneaky. It's a stealth game. But you have the ability, if you want, to get dual silver ballers and go in guns blazing. And trust me, this is one of those games where if you make a mistake, everybody else dies. And there's hundreds of NPCs in the missions. Everyone else dies. It's always fun to watch Hitman rampages, because it's like, you know the feeling. Anyway, so it says here, now the character will be trying his luck on television in a longer form story. Deadline reports that a Hitman series is being developed by Hulu, that the pilot is being written by Derek Kolstad, who wrote the original John Wick, making him something of a natural choice. Kolstad will produce alongside Adrian Ashkarai and Chuck Gordon. It's still early days for the potential series, with no actors currently attached. Yeah, I don't know. I know that, like, they have Rupert Fiend right here, played him in Agent 47, which came out a couple of years ago, and it was originally going to be Paul Walker, but then Paul Walker died, and they weren't able to do that. So it says here that television is a better fit for Hitman franchise, as it's an episodic game by its very nature. Each new level typically finds Agent 47 in a different location, chasing a new target. And yeah, I agree. It is each level is a new target or new targets, so on and so forth. But there is an overarching story, and that overarching story will definitely be part of this entire thing. So I do see it being a better fit for TV. I just don't want there to be an overabundance on action. Have action, but definitely like keep it limited and keep it intense. But have a lot more focus in the drama be on trying to infiltrate without being seen, and orchestrating tragic accidents, and being the hitman that comes in and leaves without a trace that we all know and love. But additionally, they could also sit there and go the route of Hitman Absolution, which was a game that came out in the fall of 2011. And Absolution is it's the least loved Hitman game because of the style of gameplay, because of the style of level design. It went away from having large open levels to having very linear based levels that told this more grindhouse-esque story. Now, while the game itself didn't respond very well with fans, I actually really enjoyed the story and I liked the approach to it. Now, granted, I loved the new Hitman game, so to me that's a better fit overall, but I did like what they did with Absolution, and if they were going to adapt a story like that into a television show, I think that would work well in that regard, because it goes to a lot of really weird, crazy locations with a lot of really weird and crazy people, and that is one of the cool things about the Hitman franchise, is the levels that the developers will go to create like really odd, like dark, twisted, hedonistic environments for you to explore, infiltrate, and then also eliminate, and that's. I'm excited, but I'm a little cautious with how they plan on going about it. So this is the Wonder Woman news I kind of mentioned from earlier, because this is interesting. This once again is Warner Brothers blinking in the eye of Disney and not wanting to rain on their parade or go up against them, knowing that they won't win. Saying here that Wonder Woman 2's release date's been moved up and Gal Gadot's confirmed to return, which if you've been following the news at all concerning Gal Gadot, you know that she says she wouldn't come back for Warner Brothers, she wouldn't come back to do Wonder Woman 2 if Brett Ratner was still a financier of working with Warner Brothers. Now, we know Brett Ratner stepped down from Rat Pack Entertainment, but we don't know to what capacity, and we don't know if Warner's is going to be cutting all financial ties. Given the fact that the movie itself pulled in over $800 million worldwide, I'm sure they could find another investment group that'd be willing to pony up the dough and take Rat Pack's place. But let's see here what this says. So Wonder Woman was exactly the booster shot the DCEU needed. So it only makes sense that Warner Brothers and DC want to get together, want to get to Wonder Woman 2 ASAP. After previously committing to a December 2019 release date, the Amazon Warriors return, Warner's has now moved the Wonder Woman 2 release date up to November 2019, and it looks like Gal Gadot is officially locked into return. Yeah, so it says here, okay, so the return contrast with the recent statements from the actress just came the other day that it was a rumor that she, okay, so maybe that's not as much of a thing. And so I don't know quite what to make from that, to be honest with you, in terms of what she had said or what the rumor was and how this played out, but I'm sure we're going to find out that Brett Ratner's out. But the thing here is that this is not the first time that Warner's has, like I said, blinked in the eye of Marvel and Disney. We had Batman v Superman originally slated for the first week of May 2016, the same, I think May 3rd, 2016, the same day that Captain America Civil War was coming out, and they kind of sat on that for a couple weeks, and then Warner Brothers moved up Batman v Superman 6 weeks to the end of March, or 5 weeks to the end of March 2016. And that worked out well for them in terms of earnings, and not so much well for them in terms of the movie itself, because it had some problems. But this time, given the shakeup over at Lucasfilm, with Colin Trevorrow exiting as director of Episode 9 and J.J. Abrams taking over, they were moving it from a summer 2019 release to a winter 2019 release. And given how much money Star Wars is poised to make every single release going forward, Warner Brothers didn't want to mess with that, even though there would be success with Wonder Woman in that particular time slot or that release date. They didn't want to mess with it too much. So I totally get why they want to walk away, and it's a smart play. Look at it like this. Thor Ragnarok opened up first week in November, has done $650 million worldwide. Justice League's opening up in a couple days. Mid-November is poised to do quite a bit of money. So November is a good time for these kind of films. Early November is a good time for these kind of films. In fact, actually what we're learning now is that it doesn't really matter what time of year these films come out anymore. It simply doesn't matter. The summer movie season is dead. All right, you have successes happening all the damn time. Hollywood does need a shakeup, though, in terms of its writing process and its creative process in order to make things better. But in the meantime, this is basically where things are at, and I think it's good. I think it's good that we're seeing successes in months where they normally wouldn't be. It allows movies to spread out and allows audiences to breathe and not be crammed in to go see 3 in a week every week for 3 months. impossible to spend that much money to go see that many movies. Hence why MoviePass is a freaking thing. But anyway, I want to finish up here by talking about the Lord of the Rings TV series, because this is one that we talked about last week. We heard the rumor that Jeff Bezos was personally involved in trying to negotiate a TV series for Amazon and Warner Brothers, and we know that this is what we got right now. We know that it's happening. So it says here, in its quest to launch a hit fantasy series of Game of Thrones caliber, Amazon has closed a massive deal, said to be close to $250 million, to acquire the global TV rights to Lord of the Rings, based on the fantasy novels by J.R.R. Tolkien. The streaming service has given a multi-season commitment to a Lord of the Rings series in the pact, which will also include a potential spin-off series. So here we go. This is what's going on is, they spent, that's a freaking $250 million in order to get Lord of the Rings. Jeff Bezos is betting hard on this. He's probably thinking he'll be able to probably offset most of that money by the tax incentives of moving Amazon's next HQ somewhere. Anyway, so the Lord of the Rings original series, a prequel to Tolkien's Fellowship of the Ring, will be produced by Amazon Studios in cooperation with the Tolkien Estate and Trust, HarperCollins, and New Line Cinema, a division of Warner Brothers, which produced the hugely successful Lord of the Rings movie franchise. No details about the deal were disclosed, but it believed to be dwarfing any TV series packed to date, with a whopping price tag attached. Yeah. That makes sense here. So this is a prequel series and a potential spin-off series. Now, that's the thing I don't quite get. Why a prequel series? I mean, I know it's going into uncharted territory, and they're going to be able to probably pull some stuff from some of the unpublished work I think that Tolkien had put out there, and I get that. I understand why they don't want to do The Hobbit. But then again, The Hobbit was a prequel to the Lord of the Rings, so that's kind of weird too, right? So it makes me wonder if the prequel series is in fact The Hobbit, because it's a prequel to Fellowship of the Ring. So I'm wondering if it's going to be the Hobbit TV series, because they're looking for a multi-season order, a multi-season commitment. So they could tell The Hobbit in like 2 seasons. Then they could tell each of the other books in 2 seasons, and that would give it an 8-season run on Amazon, and that could do well if they were going to do Lord of the Rings. Because let's face it here, they're going to do Lord of the Rings, the books, the Fellowship, the Two Towers, and obviously Return of the King. That is going to be an inevitability. All right, because yes, even though the movies existed, they're going to eventually tell those stories, because enough time has passed in between those films coming out and this series. Like I said when I covered it last week, this is something where you've got 14 years as of now from Return of the King to now, right? And that's a long time. That's enough time for people to want to go back and see that kind of story retold in a longer format. Now the question here though is, will Peter Jackson be involved at all? And I hope that he is, actually. I can't think of Lord of the Rings in a visual medium without wanting Peter Jackson involved or whatever. And the thing is, they don't say anything here about Wingnut Films, which is his production company, or Weta being involved. But then again, it's too early to talk about that. I'm wondering if that's going to be a thing. I'm wondering if they're going to get Guillermo del Toro to come in and be a producer on it, considering the fact that he was all set to direct The Hobbit. His script was what they used in order to shoot it, and which you could very much feel that Guillermo was involved, and he's taking a year off from directing anything after doing The Shape of Water. So that may be some time. That's maybe a little bit of time to start developing the Lord of the Rings series. Now, the earliest we're going to see this Lord of the Rings series is probably not until 2019. I would say probably fall 2019 or summer 2019. It's going to fill whatever hole Game of Thrones would have filled in that normal time slot, given that it's going to be over. But we're not going to see Lord of the Rings pop out until after Game of Thrones. That is, unless they actually did push Game of Thrones back to 2019 for the final 6 episodes, and whether or not they're going to be doing that, I have no idea. I'm speculating out the ass right now. So there's that. But that being said, I'm really excited to see what goes on with the Lord of the Rings series, and I really want to know what's going to happen next with all of that, because I mean, it makes no sense to me for them not to retell the story. It just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense to me. They're going to be investing $250 million. If I recall correctly, the budgets for those 3 movies, the first 3 films, was like a bit more than that, right? And so it's like, who knows? I don't know what's going to happen, but this is a big deal for Tolkien fans. And if the family is working on it with him, then it's probably going to be a bit more closer to the book than maybe what Jackson did. But at the same time, Jackson's kind of like the person you think of for Lord of the Rings, so I don't know. But anyway, I want to know your guys' thoughts about all this kind of stuff. This is again a longer episode, 6 stories, a lot to cover. I still even didn't even look at some stuff. But I want to know your guys' thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.